Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Developing a Proper Worldview. We're still in section 6 on the New World Order, and this is episode number 90. Is it 95 or 96? This is number 96. Getting closer and closer to 100. Yeah, I apologize if I'm a little off today. It's just been a rough day. Just a lot of drama, struggles, and then I sit and I debate. It's like, am I in any frame of mind to do any sort of ministry? Um, no is the answer, but it's just a sinful, wretched man. The worst is when you, well, I don't want to get into it, but I sit and I think, I debate when I'm having a hard day, and I'm talking about spiritually hard, when there's just a struggle in the spirit, when I don't feel like I'm walking close with the Lord, when my own foolishness has caused me to go astray. You think to yourself, like, there's no way I can get on and do anything beneficial. There's no way I can do a video now, with this heart, with this mindset. And I guess what causes me to do it is the thought of, well, is it better to just sit and sulk, or watch TV and waste time, or to jump on and do a video? It's like, I don't know. It's a hard dichotomy to do. It's like, I got a brother who often says, like, how can we go out and do any sort of evangelism, or how can we preach to people when we ourselves are struggling with sin? And and I personally believe, like, he describes that as hypocrisy, and there's some truth to that. But I believe, like, I think hypocrisy is pretending that you're not a sinner and telling other people they are. Like, that's hypocrisy to me. I think when you're honest and transparent with yourself and recognize your flaws, recognize not just flaws, your sins, your horrid, terrible sins. Like, sin is such an affront to God. If you're aware of that and coming into ministry from that humble position of, I'm no better than you. As a matter of fact, I am the chief of all sinners. That's how Paul saw himself, and I believe anybody who's honest with themselves is going to see themselves that way. Because you're going to have a lot more intimate knowledge of your own personal sins than you are of anybody else's. And so, like, how could I look at anybody else as being worse than me when I'm familiar with my sinful heart 24/7? When I'm familiar with my sinful mind 24, I know the evil thoughts I have. I know the wickedness and rebellion that dwells in my heart, and the blatant, disgusting sinfulness, that it's. I might see one or two sins in another person, if they sin against me, or I see them out doing something sinful. But that's all I know of them. So I got one or two for that person, and me, I've got a million infinity that I see. So of course I'm going to view myself as a much worse sinner. And I think that's the distinction between hypocrisy. A hypocrite is a Pharisee, who, like Jesus described, who goes out and says, "Oh, thank God I'm not like that guy. I'm not an adulterer, and I tithe all the time. I do these religious deeds. Look at me." That's a hypocrite. That's a man who is completely blind and ignorant of his own heart. And a person like that is going to preach that way. They're going to preach, "Oh, you filthy, wretched sinner," and that tone and that attitude of "I'm superior than you." And you can sense it when you hear it. I've seen street preachers that preach like that. They hold up just gross signs that are offensive, that are meant to offend. They're not meant to draw. Like, you can say the same truth in a way that pushes people away and offends and causes a wall to go up, in a way that ministers, in a way that calls to reconciliation. Like, we can say, the scriptures say that no drunkard shall enter the kingdom of heaven. Or you can say, "Oh, you wicked drunk, you're going to hell." The same thing was said, but in two different ways. There's truth. The statement has it's a true statement said in two different ways. And one offends and drives away, and one may offend, but that's between that person and God, because the heart of it is to draw, to reconcile. And the heart of this one recognizes that I'm a wretch, I'm a sinner. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying I'm better than you. I'm not calling you to something I'm not called to myself. I'm telling you, I'm simply giving you the truth of God that we are both responsible for. I have submitted myself to that. I have placed myself under it in fear and trembling and gone, "Yes, Lord, you are true. My drunkenness, or whatever my sin is," I'm just using that as the analogy because I'm not a drunkard, by the way. I'm a teetotaler. I avoid alcohol at all costs. I try to stay away from it. Just want to put that out there. But that doesn't make me better than a drunkard. For I once was a drunkard. I have been a drunkard, and the capability of being a drunkard is in my heart. And there's nothing between that makes me any better than a drunkard. There's no distinction between us except for the grace of God. And that grace of God has brought me into submission under Him, where I've said, "Yes, Lord, I am a wicked sinner. And your word is true. And I submit to you and plead with you to save me." And that style, that heart is going to proclaim the gospel in a different way. That heart is going to plead with sinners on bended knee with tears. Maybe not always visibly, but in the heart, there's a brokenness. There's a please wake up. Please see your state. Please understand that you and I are the exact same. We are sinners on a path of destruction. And I have seen the only way out, and I've turned to it, and I'm pleading with you to turn to it as well. Whereas this other path says, "Oh, I'm righteous. I am good. I do all these things. I'm religious. I'm a Christian. And you are a wicked drunkard. You are a sinful person. I stand in judgment of you. I stand above you as superior and say, you're going to hell unless you do this." And that person doesn't recognize their own fault. That person doesn't recognize their own tainted heart. And that's a wicked message. Same message, just approached in a different way. And so I think that's what makes a hypocrite. A hypocrite is somebody who does not acknowledge their wickedness, who does not come on bended knee, who is not aware of their sinfulness. Anything I ever proclaim to somebody is something I'm working out in my own heart. If you are in a kingdom and your king gives a decree, you must do this. That applies to me just as much as you. And if I hear that message and the king has declared, "Whoever hears this message, go and tell everybody else," I am required by the king to tell you that. That doesn't make me better. That doesn't make me, when I come and say, "Hey, the king has said we got to do this," it doesn't, "Oh, who are you to tell me what to do?" I'm nobody. I'm telling you what the king said. I heard the king. That's all a real Christian is somebody who's been commissioned by the king to go and proclaim the gospel. We're supposed to go out and tell you what we've heard. Doesn't make us better. I'm just like you. No distinction. We're all in the same boat. We all were in the same boat. By grace, I've been translated out of that boat into the kingdom. And I'm coming to you and saying, you can have this same grace. So that's kind of, I hate when prior to doing, I'm the type of personality, I have to be regimented. I have to stick to a schedule. Idleness is my killer. When I have idle time, when I'm bored, it's the flesh becomes powerful. The flesh sits in that boredom, and the flesh is aware of 50 different ways to get pleasure. And none of them, or very few of them are good and righteous. And so in that boredom, I know all these different ways where my flesh can get some sort of pleasure, and I gravitate towards them. So I have to stay busy. And so usually what I do is I got my work day, and then when I'm done with my work day, I go to the gym, and then when I come back from the gym, do the hygiene stuff and eat supper, and then a ministry video. So I jump from one right to the other. I try to keep no idle time. And on Wednesdays I'm supposed to be doing one of these videos, and you would think I would learn, but just I'm a lazy person. I'm prone to comforts and ease, and so I take advantage of that. I get home from the gym and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna lay here and watch some TV, and then it's just off and running, and then I feel so guilty, and it's like, man, how can I go do this video? But then it's like, well, what are my other options? I'm just going to sit here and continue to watch something fruitless. I'm just going to sit here and waste my time watching something stupid. Or I can get up and I can go do this video. And whether or not I would think sometimes we can build hay and stubble. If we do things without the Spirit's blessing, then it's kind of pointless then. Unless the Lord builds a house, they labor in vain. So I guess that's kind of the mindset. It's like, if I'm in a sinful state of mind, is the Lord really going to be with me in this? But I believe these various ministry videos I do through social media, I believe they're what the Lord has called me to do. Some are called to go street preach. Some are called to teach in Bible studies. Some are called to be Sunday school teachers. Some are called to play the piano at church, sing in the chorus at church. Some are called to raise godly children and lead a wife in the ways of the Lord, lead family devotions and things like that. I believe the path the Lord has given me is social media ministry. And so I feel like I'm being obedient when I do this, and it will be blessed by the Lord, even though I'm in that state of mind. And I'm just trying to be transparent with you guys, because I don't know. It's just some days are a struggle, and that's what it is. That's a long, rambling introduction. I didn't even get into the common introduction where I tell you that. These videos are done in a purposeful order, and it's very important that you watch them in that order. We're trying to build a foundation and then level up from there. And it's, like I say, it's vital. You can be led astray, or you can be confused if you don't have the building blocks. You got to learn addition and subtraction before you can jump into algebra. And if using that analogy, I would say we're probably like in the algebra section. We went through math and subtraction and multiplication and division, decimals and fractions, and now we're in algebra. And we still got some ways to go. We still got to do geometry and trig and pre-calc and calculus, physics, and so like we in chemistry we got a lot more to go. We're a third of the way there, I think, just about. But it's very important that you go and watch those earlier videos first. All right, so our new custom is kind of been discussing world events that have occurred during the week. I never know what to do with my arms when I'm making these videos, but I do a lot of this, animated hand speech. I apologize if that irritates you. But yeah, I've been in these last several videos been trying to discuss world events that are applicable to our discussion, and couple of things. One, another assassination attempt on Trump. So that's kind of insane. People are getting kind of bold, to take shots at him. It's kind of scary. But if he is the Lord's chosen, then no harm can come to him. There's nothing to worry about. Um, it's interesting how the media just kind of brushes it off. The media is one of the most wicked things there is, and in one of the sections we're going to get into some of the media stuff. Unfortunately, not a lot. I don't have a lot of good documentaries on it. Um, but they're so corrupt. They're so blatantly just propaganda. It's insane. I saw on MSNBC they were basically shifting blame to Trump, saying he's got to tone down his rhetoric. I'm sorry, because of what he said, he's the one to blame for people shooting at him. That's nuts. Meantime, you got like people like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters and even President Biden making violent threats against Trump. Biden even said, "Oh, I'd like to take him behind the gym house or whatever," and Maxine said, "You gotta get in the face of Trump supporters and push back and riot." And Pelosi said similar things, and the media constantly, like the people on the View, just constantly spewing vile hatred and just that propaganda that just it's this mesmerizing propaganda coming through the television screen that just has leftists violently insane. And I think I've mentioned this before. Like, if you talk to a person who's anti-Trump, they immediately spin out of control. They immediately start getting angry and yelling and screaming. There's no logic, no reason, no conversation, just insane. They call it Trump derangement syndrome, and it's coming from the propaganda. The more television news that a person watches, the angrier they become. It's we've talked about how television, how these screens, they have a blue flicker rate, imperceptible to the naked eye, but there's a constant blue flicker going on, and it puts you in a hypnotic state. And then things like fluoride in the water have this effect on the brain that put you into a semi-subdued state. And it's not just fluoride. I'm sure there's other chemicals too. That's why the pharmaceutical company is pushing all these drugs. They just put people into this susceptible state of suggestion, and then that flicker rate, you stare at it, it puts you into that hypnotic state, and then they just program you with violence, hatred, racist, orange man bad. And of course you're going to get some people out there that brains can't handle it, there's some imbalance in them. I don't know about chemical imbalance. There's something demonic, there's something off about certain people out there that are just going to snap. They're not just going to get angry and violent. They're going to do things like this guy just did. So the media and the leftist politicians are directly to blame for this. And like, if you think about it too much, it's what can cause a lot of anger in me. It's because I start thinking, like, there's no justice. These people are never held accountable. But the Psalms tell us about that. David had that same thing. He looked and thought, why are the wicked prospering? And then he remembers, the judgment of the Lord. The Lord has put their feet in slippery places. The Lord will avenge. The Lord will have his day of justice. We just have to patiently endure. And that's hard to do when you're continually seeing this wickedness. It's why my one of my personal heroes, Alex Jones, why he's so angry, because he's just been looking into this stuff day and night for 30 years, just overwhelmed with this wickedness. I can't do it. I can do at most. I've limited myself to 1 day a week of news. I'll see headlines as I scroll through Twitter or Facebook or whatever, um, but I only listen to the news. Of course, I'm not listening to mainstream media, but I do it once a week, and usually only for like an hour or so. And that's about all I can handle. I learned that a long time ago. Um, when the whole Trump thing first started, I was listening to like 4 days a week, and I was getting angry. I was wanting people held accountable for treason. I was just so upset at the wickedness, and because it is upsetting. You see the wicked prospering, and it's like you want to tear your clothes and go, "Oh, where is justice?" But we got to remember the Lord will have his day of justice. So we can trust him. In the meantime, just be aware of the devices of the devil. Don't watch mainstream media. It's brainwashing propaganda. It's nonsense. Um, so what else was there? Hillary Clinton, was talking about censorship again. How they want to. Oh, and Newsom. I don't know. Is it appropriate to call him what Trump calls him, new scum? Um, and Killary. Um, it's okay to mock the wicked sometimes. Elijah mocked the prophets of Baal, and their demonic god. It's just we got to remember though that these are just deceived, blind people, as we once were. They're just further along in it than we ever were. They've got positions of power that we didn't have. But yeah, so Newsom, uh, I guess he passed a bill that like is outlawing certain memes, like AI generated memes, political memes. It's insane to think in America that there's any sort of censorship of speech. That's just mind blowing to me. That's Nazi Germany type stuff. That's not supposed to happen in America. And now you got half the population supporting the idea. Hillary Clinton again talking about how there needs to be bans on misinformation, and people are like, "Oh, what's wrong with that?" The problem is people are allowed to have what they label as misinformation is a lot of times opinion or truth. You're allowed to have an opinion, even if it's a wrong opinion. You're allowed to have that. And they're like, oh, these platforms need to be monitored. No, these platforms are people sharing ideas, sharing opinions. You can't tell them their opinion's wrong. They're allowed to have an opinion, whatever they want to say, whatever they want. That's America. To censor that is it's totalitarianism. It's Nazi Germany. To say, that's forbidden. For what are they? Verboten? Is that what they called it in Nazi Germany? It's forbidden speech. And when you have an authoritarian power that they decide what speech is okay and what's not, they determine what is misinformation and what's not. There's no hope for you then. Your country's gone. You're done. Freedom's done. And so it's insane to me to hear world leaders like they've always wanted it, but for them to publicly speak about it and to be supported by half the population, it's like, man, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. But yeah, so that's what's going on in the world today. Um, I guess that's it. We'll jump into it. We're in our sixth section, the New World Order section, as we've titled it, and we're looking at the Invisible Empire DVD. We watched the first 40 minutes or so, 43 minutes, and so we're going to pick up there. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is where the video is going to end. They've been censoring and taking down and blocking videos. TikTok is doing it now too. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, Rumble. I'll have the link to Rumble down in the description. Just click on that link, go over to Rumble, watch the full video. All right. So and everybody should be on Rumble. It's free speech. You know, we should be supporting platforms that provide free speech. So without further ado, let's jump into it.